No matter where I go in this company, I am impressed by how talented AT&T people are and how anxious they are to help us succeed. I want to unleash the potential of AT&T people so that they can deliver what they are capable of delivering. We're a very different company today than we were 5 years ago. We must continue to change. We must continue to grow.
The cordless product line has tripled its market share because the people that are closest to the customers are really, truly making the decisions now.
One solid investment, one enduring architecture, and one infinite future.
The most powerful earthquake in 1,000 years strikes the Soviet Republic of Armenia. The Soviet government accepts AT&T's offer, the loan of a mobile PRXA telephone exchange.
All the way from market requirements through to product delivery, we have to look at the product as a worldwide product.
The ayes have it, so ordered.
The Federal Communications Commission today approved a new rate plan. It says we'll save customers almost $1 billion.
Price cap regulation fundamentally changes the environment that AT&T operates in and ought to change the way AT&T does business going forward.
We must be able to operate more quickly, make decisions faster. That's the purpose of some fundamental changes that we're making in the way we think about the business and the way we operate the business. And the driving principle is customer, customer, customer.
For Trans-Pacific 3-fiber optic cable linking the U.S. and Japan as part of a rapidly expanding international web of high-speed undersea.
For 100 years now, we've been pumping our coins into pay telephone.
We're very pleased with our early results in finding that approximately 3 out of 4 of the customers have picked AT&T.
AT&T. In the business world, AT&T has a new labor agreement with its unions.
The agreement reached yesterday sets up a $5 million child care fund. It also gives workers 6 months leave to care for newborns or sick parents.
Hotel and AT&T will share in each other's growth in Europe and indeed around the world.
AT&T is kind of really a working partner with General Electric in making the worldwide network happen. They have the experience. They also have the partnerships.
I think what I see now is a company that is more likely to retain and extend its market share in each of the areas that it's operating in.
Most people said could never be done. On July 1st of 1989, better than 96% of all customers will now experience all digital transmission.
Networking. That's the key word in AT&T's latest computer rollout. Analysts believe AT&T
will... Over 60,000 of the new systems, including major sales to American Airlines and Firestone.
Elsewhere today, AT&T will be allowed to enter the electronic publishing business, a move which could greatly enhance the evolution of the information services industry.
All the communications we have are by telephone. Everything else went out. Our radios went out. Everything went out. The telephone stayed on. We have people calling us.
If I had not been able to communicate with somebody else, I don't know what I would have done during that hurricane.
More telephone calls were placed in this country than ever before in history.
And our first concern when you have this type of an event is to make sure the people in that stricken area can call out.
The future is Unix. The future is freedom.
It's fundamental to AT&T's future success that they push the decision-making process down as far as possible into the organization.
AT&T people on the front lines are the ones who know and understand customer needs. And we are betting our future not just on the excellence of our technology, but on the skill and the resourcefulness and the competitive spirit of AT&T people who deal directly with their customers. As you've just seen, 1989 has been a year to remember. And while it wasn't all roses, we do have some real successes in virtually every corner of our business, at home and abroad. And Wall Street paid attention too, with our stock price rising about 50% from the beginning of the year. And for that, I thank all of you You should be very proud of your efforts, and I certainly am. Your efforts reflected the direction for AT&T that I outlined and sent out to all of you late last year. I wanted that statement of direction to be a framework and a guide for managing AT&T, for focusing our energies and our resources on our customers. It was not supposed to be framed and hung on a wall. It was not a pronouncement for posterity, and it was not a cover for just another reorganization. It was a guide for action, for changing our business for the better. The change has involved restructuring. We've moved to our business unit structure, and relatively quickly. And in fact, faster than many of us thought that we could. All the parts have not meshed perfectly, but the new structure already has paid some dividends. We aim more clearly at our markets, at our customers, and our competitors. And as we went through a difficult budget and contracting process, we all learned more about our cost and setting priorities. Many organizations had to learn more precisely what their AT&T customers needed and wanted. They had, in effect, to compete for and satisfy these internal customers. That process was far from perfect, but we learned profitable lessons that will serve us well in the future. We've only scratched the surface of the most important aspect of AT&T's new direction. Restructuring was the easy part, and now we have to change the way we think and the way we go about our work. Changes we have to make if we are to achieve the success that we're capable of. Now, there are lots of people in all parts of this organization trying to change. That applies to me and to the group executives as well as to every other employee. And we all have a ways to go. The key to that change, I believe, lies in how we apply the principles of quality to every operation of this company. Now, I'm not talking about quality as some high-flown ideal or something that we selectively apply here and there. I'm talking about every employee becoming engaged and participating in the process that identifies who customers are within the business or outside the business. Now, I'm talking about identifying their needs, meeting their standards of excellence and cost, and working with each customer to keep improving, to keep raising the bar. The direction I outlined to you a year ago should help us get to that point. It still stands. It's challenging and it's right for the times. It will also give us constancy against which to plan, against which to judge ourselves. And as we move forward, we can build on that. Finally, one of the important changes we need to make is learning from one another, which means listening to one another and being straightforward with one another. I've been trying to follow that course in various ways over the past year. One way has been to meet with small groups of employees at all levels and in various locations and parts of the business. And I've learned a lot. And it always drives home a very important point. We have so many talented people who want to win, who want their business to succeed, if only we'll support them and make it easier for them to succeed. Most of these sessions are very informal and off the record, but we did videotape one of them in early November. And so I'd like to invite you now to watch portions of that meeting, and then I hope you'll follow up with your own discussion. Again, thanks, and let's work at an even better year in 1990. Now let's join that meeting.
Good morning, Bob.
Andrea
West.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. Good to meet
Pleasure.
you.
Pam?
Good morning. Jan Rooney.
Hi, Jan.
Nice to meet you.
A lot of pretty faces right here this morning. I wasn't counting you two.
Clients are constantly telling me that they like the new AT&T. They feel that things are happening sooner and better and faster.
The primary responsibility for running the business is with the people who deal with customers directly. That's why we flipped the organization chart upside down. That's why the customers are at the top and I'm at the bottom.
I'm in the marketplace regularly. I'm probably more in the market than in my office. This is market research on the spot. The best thing about this is you're talking with customers one-on-one. You're hearing what they need. You're hearing about their clients and their applications and what they'd like to see in a communication service such as the one I market. I know a lot of marketing people are on the heels of our competitors, kind of like a revolving door. MCI was in there 5 minutes earlier, Sprint was in there 5 minutes earlier, and a lot of competitive warfare in the marketplace. But even in an industry plane, we get to go toe-to-toe in panels in industry associations with our competitors, and you learn so much.
It used to be some time back, marketing was the salesperson out carrying the bag trying to make the sale, but I think we've realized and redefined marketing to be much more broad than that, and marketing is the attendant, marketing is the operator, marketing is the technician. Everyone has a responsibility to sell, if you will, with an AT&T and act as a marketeer.
The customer had a competitive fax machine. They were always having problems with it. I just happened to be Johnny on the spot. Just happened to be there. And as we went to the catalog, I talked to the president of the firm. Since we worked real close with a marketing rep, I got right in there with her at the time. And she went up to the same day. Not only did they sell that office, but he went national with the fax. Every one of his offices, he went with AT&T fax.
You know, as our marketplace changes, as globalization takes place, are we going to be able to change as rapidly as our competitors? Change around here isn't easy. I mean, it takes us, I think a lot of people step back and say, we changed, whew, that's over. Let's not do that for another 5 years.
I think perhaps we need to realize that the marketplace is always changing. I think we have to be more in a mind of not when is this change going to be over, but that it's going to be a dynamic industry we're in, and we have to get attuned to things are going to be changing, and it's going to be a different situation.
But I'd really like to change the culture. I'd like to change the behavior. I'd like to change the attitude of people. And as we get more focused on customers and less focused on internal issues and arguments among each other and so forth, I believe that's how we can really be successful.
I'd like to raise an area of some concern, which is in the business unit I'm in, there has been a definite sense of focusing more fully on customer need and a clear recognition of the need to do that, both to satisfy the customer and for financial reasons. But the concern that it raises is we are tremendously focused on the short term at the present time.
One of the major concerns, and it's frequently raised by Ian Ross and others, is that we are shortchanging that 3 to 5 year development period, for example, in development expense, that we are so focused on this next year's budget that we're not setting aside the investment that we ought to make for subsequent years outside of the development budget in other places. And you don't grow the business by making investments 1 year at a time.
If you really want to see some of this stuff where there has been a lot of change that's taken place, you know, I invite you to come by the Denver Works. We've gone through massive change. We've changed processes. We've changed the way we manage and work with one another. It really feels good. You can actually see the difference. You can see people getting involved.
I'm looking around to see if there's anything that you might need from us.
It used to be in the old days, we had old sand around here, play in your own sandbox. And today, I have the liberty and the freedom to walk up to anyone and ask them, are they having any problems? What can I do to help? That old thing is kind of buried now. We don't worry about sandboxes. We believe in continuous improvement. We don't believe we'll ever be at a point where we can stop. We like the continuous change and the continuous improvements. Just give us the opportunity, and we will be a thriving business.
Audrey, you really have had some success stories out there. Can you, I don't mean to put you on the spot, can you recite some of the interval reductions that have taken place?
Oh, we've gone from like 16 weeks down to 3 weeks in shipping a product. One thing that I see is that as we continue to improve in the manufacturing, we're shrinking. Even our floor space, we don't need as much floor space to manufacture the same material, PBX equipment. I have visions of us shrinking to just not existing anymore.
You're right. As we continue to improve our productivity, as we have at about a 10% rate in all of our manufacturing facilities each of the last 3 years, you create more capacity because you shrink your requirements, and so we wind up with extra square footage. Ideally, if we could improve our sales at least 10% a year, we could fill that capacity, perhaps. We haven't been able to do that. And so I don't see how we're going to use that capacity in the near term.
Bob, my question concerns the unprofitable business units. Are there plans to eliminate these business units if they continue to be unprofitable, or would we merge these business units into healthy business units?
Let me put it this way. I'd be surprised if we don't find some businesses that we decide to sell or to exit or to shut down over time or whatever. At least if we don't, then we may have some changes in the marketplace. People frequently ask me about the PBX business, and I don't know why it's always a target, but the PBX market is an irrational market, and has been for some time. Jack Buchter, I think, has got his arms around that business, and if he and his team can't make that business go, then maybe nobody can.
Redirection calls for the globalization of AT&T's business. Do you foresee a global international strategy for AT&T as a whole, or do you anticipate that each individual business unit will formulate its own international strategies on a country-by-country basis?
All the businesses must look at, I believe, and we need to move in this direction, must look at their business as being potentially a global business, because their competitors tend to be global. Customers, more and more, tend to have global needs. Furthermore, if we don't compete with some of our major competitors from abroad on their own turf, in their own territory, we give them license to subsidize their entry here by their protected markets abroad. So it's important for us, for all those reasons, to look at all of our businesses to determine whether we can or we must be global in nature. Some will be, some will not.
Are we going to see incentives for products to be developed at the start with an international flavor, so that perhaps we could increase our product revenues and not rely so much on just services for the bulk of our international revenues?
I know that's starting because as we develop products, that's at least a discussion we have about every product we have, is what could be done now in the initial stages that might make it more cost-effective later to convert it to an international situation.
You came back and said Spain is more exciting.
And we are more in control of our business at lower levels of management than has ever occurred in this company before. As a result of that, the cordless product line, for example, has tripled its market share over the last few years. A real key element in our whole SBU concept here in CP is that the team, everyone on the team, puts at risk a certain % of their salary. So if we make a wrong decision about the marketplace, it'll show up in our bottom line, and we personally have a stake in that. And I think that's been very effective in getting us focused on the customer, but it has that balance of maybe an overbalance to the short range versus the long range. That really brings us back though to the long-term question, because to really become globally competitive, we're going to have to invest in the long term.
It seems to me that you could also view the Salesforce as a support organization for the business units and the product managers that have bottom line profit and loss responsibility. Do you think that that's a conflict, or are they really in both roles?
Now we are getting to a point here, I think, where we're probably going to specialize more at the interface with the customer in the Salesforce.
But now you have business units, and then you have many business units within the business unit. Mm-hmm. And when you bring an integrated job where a customer wants you to do the whole thing for them, and then you go back and you try to tell the AT&T, here's the price we need to be at to be competitive, you're negotiating with each little small business unit. And when you get down to somebody who's only 10% of the job, they say, well, geez, why don't you go talk to switching because they're so much bigger than we are. Well, you know, the 10% is that up to 20, then 30, then pretty soon half your bid are people that say they're too small, and you have no way of getting the entire bid down to where AT&T can be successful.
We need some way for somebody to be the champion for the salesperson in a particular business unit or maybe across business units who says, okay, I'll be sure I get all the parts here for you so that the salesperson doesn't have to be the implementer and the negotiator and the person who does all the work behind the scenes.
The climate is quite dynamic. We're being forced literally to think as an advocate for the customer. And I honestly believe this is the only way we can effectively do that. But what I'm saying is that the bickering, as it might be perceived as bickering, is a concern for the bottom line and closure on anything that we promise the customer.
Call it whatever you want to. If bickering leads to customer satisfaction, and there's no personal hard feelings when you walk away from that meeting, that's constructive bickering. That's constructive contention. That's arguing with one another, but on behalf of the customer. That's the kind of behavior that we're trying to encourage. You're always on the high ground if you're arguing on behalf of the customer.
I think Eddie raises a good point, though. I think that you're seeing a lot more of wild marketing people like myself who want magic yesterday, bringing our operations people and our Bell Labs people to the clients, or even better yet, bringing our clients into a facility such as the NOC, which is on a par with Disney World in their eyes. They're so enormously impressed to see what we can do in our network. And I'm finding that the support that I get from both the labs and our network services organization has been far more expeditious than in the past. And I think that when folks in those kind of organizations see the sense of urgency and hear the sense of urgency from the customer and start realizing what the bottom line is to us, it makes it much more of a team.
Seeing where the pressure buildup is and the backup, the regional people will act autonomously in terms of their own region.
I think we're better prepared today to reach across and work together as a team, in spite of the business structure that we're talking about. I think we can beat the hell out of any competitor. And it comes back to the confidence that I have in the people of AT&T every place I go. The real monitor that underlies this whole philosophy and redirection is the customer. More and more, we have to look at how the customer behaves and how they buy and whether they're satisfied and whether they complain and so forth. They are the final monitor on whether this process is working.
The Computer Systems Group has spent a lot of time trying to get closer to their customer. And I think that the most important thing is that our customers are forcing us to be that way. We have to meet their standards. We have to meet their requirements. And the customers are smart. They know what they want.
I can set up a list now and send it to multiple users. Can I do the same thing here?
Sure.
Customers generally see us as more aggressive, faster responding, seemingly more interested in solving their problems, better on our execution and implementation after the sale. At the same time, they see what's happened to our stock price in the market. You know, I tell you and I tell other people, don't believe our price and don't believe our public relations yet. I must tell you very honestly that I knew that redirection statement would precipitate some change. I didn't fully comprehend how much change might take place in a year's time. Not all of the change has been positive, I'm quick to add, because I don't have my I don't have my head in the sand. One of the reasons I know it hasn't all been positive is because I continue to hear from people like you.
I read the Journal yesterday. I read that we had lost, I think it was Kmart, but it seemed like a very big account, 3,600 locations, I forget. I think redirection will be successful when a lot of employees read that and they feel a sense of loss and a hurt. I did. I think when people start personalizing that, not feeling like, well, somebody else lost that. I mean, we lost it. You know, we lost.
I think what you said, John, about feeling the loss, I just went through that personally as a national account manager. And unfortunately, because of some regulatory issues, we lost the business of a very large customer. And I think one of the things I learned about redirection through that was the risk factor, that you take those risks and you try your best. And if it results in a loss, you get a lot of support from other people that were involved. It wasn't like a single effort. It was very much a group effort.
Redirection is really about me. It's really about a change in my attitude. It's really about me speaking up for the long term of the business, confronting when that may not be popular or whatever. To really be a redirected company, it comes down to each of us taking ownership for our own performance and the performance of the company. And when that happens, that is when I believe we will have accomplished redirection.